He slapped the damn tablet on the conference table like he was dropping a bomb. Didn't even introduce himself properly, just launched straight into a slideshow about metrics and cross department synergy. Corporate crap. The whole warehouse team sat stiff in that muggy break room, half of us still nursing our coffee. This was supposed to be a 5-minute safety huddle. It dragged into 20, then 30. Name's Ryan. I'm 41. I live just outside Columbus, Ohio. Been working shipping and inventory control at this distribution hub for over 12 years. We'd been running smooth for a long time. That changed the second this new guy showed up. Name's Brent Callahan, he finally said like he expected applause. I'm your new operations manager, effective immediately. Then he hit the next slide. Let's talk storage compliance. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I already knew where this was headed. He was pointing at photos from our back utility space, mostly labeled bins, broken down pallets, backup shelving. Then one picture filled the screen, and my stomach clenched. It was my cabinet, the custom one I built 5 years ago. Oak frame, locked drawers, RFID embedded slots. The same cabinet that solved our miscounts, got written up in the internal newsletter, even helped them win a logistics award last year. The one I had licensed to them under strict terms. Personal time, my tools, my design. We've identified some non-standard, unauthorized items being stored on company property, Brent said, pacing like he was running a courtroom. From now on, all personal woodworking projects or custom builds need to be removed from warehouse space, no exceptions. Then he turned to me, full eye contact, hands on hips. This includes the prototype cabinet system in back. I don't care who made it or why it's there. It's not approved inventory. Remove it by end of week. The room went dead silent. I didn't say a word, just nodded. That's it. He smirked like he'd won something. What he didn't know, and clearly didn't bother to find out, was that cabinet wasn't just some hobby project. It was part of a license agreement, one with very specific terms, including a buried clause that said if the company ever removed it or modified it without renewing the deal, ownership snapped right back to me. And once that happened, the system would auto-publish the design under open license. No takebacks. He thought he was flexing. I let him think that. I stood, took my coffee to the sink, and dumped it out. Understood, I said. Then I walked out, already running the plan in my head. Back at my bench, I pulled the laminated binder from the bottom drawer and dropped it open to the contracts section. I kept everything, printed, signed, time-stamped, because I'd worked with enough corporate morons to know paperwork's the only armor that counts when things turn sideways. Page 72. Licensing agreement, my signature, their signature. Date stamped 7 years ago, right after the prototype outperformed the junk we'd been using for decades. The cabinet system wasn't just some weekend build. I designed it in my garage, ran test builds on my own time, even paid out of pocket for the RFID sensors. I'd watched our old tracking system choke on simple counts, so I fixed it. Out of pride, not paycheck. When it worked, when it dropped our misplacements by almost 40%, they came running, offered me a little bump in bonus to let them use it. I said no, I didn't want to sell it. I wanted to license it. We settled on a 5-year rolling agreement. They could use it, keep it in place, even replicate it in other branches as long as the original wasn't altered or removed without renegotiation. That was the key. Right there in Section 8B, buried under general terms. If the licensed item is removed, modified, or otherwise rendered inactive without prior renewal of this agreement, I read aloud, the intellectual property rights revert to the original designer, and the system's automation will initiate public release under a Creative Commons Attribution license. There it was. The trap. Set years ago, waiting for some puffed-up manager with too much ego and not enough background check. I leaned back on the stool and looked around. The rest of the floor was dead normal. Forklift beeped somewhere in the next aisle. Air compressor hissed near the tire racks. Nobody knew it had just been triggered. I flipped to the back page, checked the final clause. The license renews automatically every fiscal year unless interrupted. His demand had interrupted it. That alone was enough. The clause wasn't in bold, wasn't even on the summary page. It was designed to be missed by anyone not reading past the first 10 pages. Legal had reviewed it back then. They hadn't blinked. They just assumed I'd never walk away from it. That I needed them more than they needed me. Brent sure didn't know it was in there. I closed the binder, slid it back under the bench, and cracked my knuckles. No anger, no panic, just clarity. I wasn't going to warn him. Wasn't going to write a long email or schedule some pointless meeting. He gave an order. I was going to follow it. I pulled out the old USB key from my toolbox, popped it into my laptop, and checked the backup designs. All the CAD files, the RFID mapping, the materials list, the slot algorithms, everything was in place, just like I left it. Still time-stamped, still clean. I opened the central license tracker I'd built into the codebase. Quiet little feature. The second the primary system was wiped, it would trigger a notice through a side server I ran from my home network. That server would send the blueprint package to every open hardware index that accepted auto submissions. Within 24 hours, the cabinet would be public, legal, downloadable, and completely outside their control. No lawyers, no NDAs, no debates, just a clean release. The only thing I had to do was follow instructions and remove the cabinet. Once it was gone, the claws would snap into place. I sat back and breathed slow. He told me to take it out? Fine, I'd take it out, and I'd take the floor out from under him while I was at it. I left the binder shut and headed out early that day. Didn't say much to anyone, just clocked out, walked to the truck, and drove straight home without turning on the radio. In the garage, I flipped on the lights and slid my laptop onto the workbench. Not the one from the warehouse, my personal one. This one ran cool and quiet, no spyware, no company fingerprints. I hooked it to my private server, a rack I'd been building over the years, fan-cooled, surge-protected, air-gapped from anything outside. I pulled up the encrypted archive and started moving files. First the raw CADs, then the subfolder of RFID scripts, materials sourcing, weight distribution charts, installation walkthroughs, all of it. I added 2 new encryption layers with randomized keys, uploaded mirror copies to 3 cloud vaults under aliases, then printed off the offline backup, all logged, all time-stamped. None of this was new to me. I'd built side projects for years. The key was always having clean separation, clean tools, clean records, clean trails. I wasn't giving them anything they hadn't asked for. I was just making sure I had everything squared away before I let them pull the plug. Back at work that evening, I plugged the company tablet into my dock. Same spot as always, third bench from the end. A few guys from the night crew were still in the zone. Daryl and Trent were arguing over lunch shifts for next week. Somebody was microwaving leftover wings, stinking up the corner with that cheap vinegar heat. No one looked twice at me. I opened the internal design library. The cabinet system still sat under its own tab, labeled Cabinet Revision 3.4_opt. I didn't hesitate. I started pulling it apart, not just deleting files, but overwriting them. 0 layers, dummy code, pixel noise shoved into the CAD cache, every removal logged under my admin ID. Brent's order had given me full clearance. I didn't need to ask twice. Once the internal directory was clean, I opened the hidden trigger utility, the one I'd baked into the local version 5 years ago. It was still intact, still armed. The second it confirmed the final deletion from a company-authorized device, it would connect to my server back home, verify the clause breach, and initiate the license transfer. I paused, hands resting on the keys. Daryl leaned over from the next bench. Yo, Ryan, you get in on the sub run? I think Casey's taking orders. Nah, I said, not looking up. I'm good. Suit yourself, man. They're getting double meat. I gave him a nod and turned back to the screen. The final file was sitting there, the assembly manifest. I hovered over it for a second, then hit delete. Gone. The utility blinked twice, then closed itself automatically. Quiet, no fanfare, just a soft flicker in the corner of the screen. I ejected the tablet and powered it down. The trigger was live now. It was in motion. From here on out, it couldn't be stopped. Not by Brent, not by legal, not even by me. I tucked the tablet back in its case and stood up. All around me, the room buzzed with small talk. Someone laughed near the bay doors. Someone else asked about the Browns game. Same old noise, same old walls. But I wasn't in it anymore. Not really. I zipped up my hoodie, cracked my neck, and walked toward the exit. Tomorrow, I'd pull the pin. I walked in 15 minutes early the next morning, same as always. Brent was already at his desk in the corner office, blinds half open like he wanted people to see him pretending to be busy. I didn't even pause, just went straight to the inventory workstation near the central terminal. One click brought up the maintenance screen. I logged in using my standard ID. Still full access, no restrictions. He never pulled it, either forgot or assumed I wasn't smart enough to use it against him. The final confirmation was waiting. The system prompt flashed in yellow. Confirm full deletion of asset record CAB-REV 3.4_opt. I hovered over the button. This was it. Brent's voice echoed across the floor. Ryan, let's make sure your little side project is out of our way by noon, yeah? I hit the delete command. Ping. That was it. Just a quiet system chime. Same one you'd get if you removed a broken barcode from a scanner list. But under the hood, the code I'd written years ago was already moving. The private server at home caught the deletion, verified the conditions in the license, and immediately kicked off the distribution protocol. In less than 60 seconds, the blueprint was published. Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License, hosted on 4 open-source hardware platforms, auto-tagged, indexed, searchable. It was public now, forever. Anyone could download it, rebuild it, sell it, modify it. No company could lock it down again. I pulled up Outlook, typed a 5-word email. Subject, cabinet body. Removed as instructed. Ryan hit send. A few seconds later, Brent strolled by my bench like a dog marking territory. See? Streamlining works. We keep it clean, we keep it tight. Appreciate the cooperation. He clapped my shoulder and moved on, grinning like he'd just solved world hunger. Let him think that. I kept my screen open just long enough to verify the server log. License transfer. Complete distributed. 2. Hub, MakerForge, free builds, core designs. Time to propagation, estimated 20 to 45 minutes. I closed the terminal and walked to the break room. Coffee was burnt. Didn't matter. I poured half a cup just to have something in my hand. Daryl walked in behind me. Yo, you finally ditched that Frankenstein cabinet? Yeah, I said. They wanted it gone. It's gone. He shrugged. Management's always got a flex, right? Right. I took a sip, bitter as hell, and headed back out to the dock. Brent was standing near the loading bay now, giving some speech to a couple junior techs about visibility and process accountability. All words, no substance. He didn't know that by noon, the very design he thought he killed would be live on Reddit, Discord, LinkedIn, passed around by woodworkers, warehouse techs, and small ops teams that couldn't afford expensive inventory software. Every indie logistics group in the country was about to get their hands on a system that took me 4 months to build and 5 years to license. And the best part? The system had logged the final deletion with his name on it. When legal came looking, and the record would show Brent Callahan, ops manager, as the authorized party who triggered the breach. He ordered the removal, he ignored the license, he deleted the files, and now he just handed away the one tool that kept their entire floor running leaner than the competitors. All I did was follow directions. A few feet away, Brent laughed at one of his own jokes and pointed toward a clipboard like he was running the damn Navy. I went back to my bench, shut the laptop, and leaned against the edge of the work table. My phone buzzed with a 2-factor confirmation from my home server. Distribution verified, no errors. I slid the phone back into my pocket and looked out over the floor. It was done. Not just the cabinet, the whole game. And no one even knew yet. By the next morning, the first crack showed up before I even finished my coffee. Daryl came in holding his tablet like it was dripping acid. Hey man, did they push a systems update overnight? All the inventory cabinet layouts are blank. I kept my face still. No idea. Try rebooting. Already did. It's not just mine. Trent says his diagrams are glitching out too. Whole manifest folder's gone. I shrugged. Sounds like Ite's problem. He walked off, mumbling. 10 minutes later, someone else yelled from across the warehouse. Who jacked the slot matrix config? None of the RFID drawers are syncing. Emails started trickling in, first from the techs, then from floor supervisors in franchise hubs across the state. The subject lines all read the same. Cabinet file missing. URGENT. RFID logic corrupted build plan not loading. Then the text started. Hey, is this part of a system refresh? Was there a change to the cabinet hardware? Why is the build diagram public now? Public. That word slid through the air like a slow leak in a gas line. Casey from Diagnostics tapped me on the shoulder an hour later. Ryan, come check this out. She flipped her phone around, already halfway grinning. A Reddit thread. Subreddit r/open hardware design. Title? Insane cabinet system just dropped for free. Logistics dream build. Underneath it, screenshots, diagrams, annotated build instructions. All mine. One guy had already replicated a drawer module using a 3D printer and was running time trials in his garage. Another posted a video of himself assembling the top panel and praising the layout efficiency. "Isn't this your cabinet?" she asked. I looked once. "Looks like it." She raised an eyebrow. "We're not supposed to share internal builds like this, right?" "I didn't share anything," I said, and I meant it. Her smile dropped just a bit. "Then how the hell?" She stopped, glancing around. "You didn't hear this from me, but Brent's office phone hasn't stopped ringing all morning." I nodded and went back to my bench. Around me, everyone was buzzing. Nobody was working. There was a quiet hum of panic just under the usual shift noise. Machines beeped without operators, carts sat idle mid-aisle. People were glued to their screens, refreshing dashboards that weren't loading right. The blueprint wasn't just out there, it was everywhere. Because the internet doesn't just sit quietly when it finds gold, it spreads it. Fast, forums, Discord servers, Slack channels for indie fabricators. Even a couple verified warehouse ops consultants were reposting it with comments like "best modular build I've seen all year," and "this just made five-figure systems irrelevant." At 10:15, I overheard a supervisor on a call near the copier. "Yes, I'm aware the design looks identical." "No, I don't know why it's online." "I'll escalate it." The words franchise compliance and contract conflict came out next, followed by a string of sighs and keyboard clacks. I just kept moving, logged a few work tickets, repacked a shipment, stayed quiet. Around 11, Brent stormed through the middle of the warehouse, jaw clenched, eyes scanning like he was searching for someone to blame. He paused near me for a second. "You seen the RFID layout files?" he asked. "Nope," I said. "They're gone from my terminal too." He grunted and walked off, muttering something about contacting infrastructure. 10 feet behind him, someone whispered, "This place is falling apart." I glanced at the clock. It had barely been 24 hours. By lunchtime, the noise level dropped like someone cut the main breaker. Phones still rang. Keyboards still tapped. But the voices lowered, hushed. Everyone was talking, just not out loud anymore. I was at the shipping bench when I caught the first whisper. Two guys from logistics hovered near the coffee machine, facing away from the floor. Franchise heads are pissed. One of them said their floor boss called the cabinet diagram a carbon copy of some Reddit post. Dude, we're not even supposed to mention Reddit in ops meetings. I kept taping boxes, slow, steady, listening. Did they say what legal's doing? Not yet. They're probably scrubbing every shared drive we've got. I slid the packed order down the belt, walked back to the inventory terminal. The engineering team was camped out behind the server hub, eyes locked on screens, trading files back and forth. I recognized their lead, Mallory, sharp, serious, never smiled. She looked like she hadn't blinked in 20 minutes. "Pull every version," she said. "Local, archived, backup servers. I want timestamps, access logs, and version histories now." Someone else mumbled, "There's talk it got out through an IP leak." Mallory snapped her fingers. "Focus, no speculation, just data." She didn't sound calm. She sounded cornered. I passed Brent near the dock 15 minutes later. He was pacing with his Bluetooth earpiece jammed in like it was welded to his skull. Hand motions everywhere. "Yes, we're addressing it," he said, voice sharp. "We're aware the cabinet system appears online." He cut his eyes toward me as I walked by. I didn't even break stride. Back in the tech bullpen, someone had printed the Reddit thread. Actual paper. It was taped to the side of a file cabinet with 3 red circles and a handwritten note. "This is not a drill." Casey leaned over the partition and whispered, "Mallory just asked who had admin rights on the deletion." "Did they say what triggered the release?" "Nope, but Brent's name's getting thrown around a lot." The panic was there now, just under the surface. Tight shoulders, faster footsteps, conversations that cut off when doors opened. And still Brent strutted. "Streamlining," he said to a junior supervisor near the stairwell. "That's what real ops needs. Simpler tools, less clutter, tighter control." The guy nodded like he agreed, but his eyes said, "Don't loop me in." Another call buzzed through the overhead speakers. "If anyone from engineering has eyes on the current RFID error index, please report to conference room B." Nobody moved. I headed to the vending machines just to get away for a second. On the way back, I passed 2 guys from business services in a closed-door huddle. "Legal's involved now. They're calling it a containment issue." "Is it actually a breach if it wasn't proprietary?" That's the problem. Nobody's sure what was legally protected and what wasn't. Their voices dropped even lower. I didn't catch the rest. I sat back at my bench, cracked open a water bottle, and leaned forward like I was just stretching out my back. Truth was, I was soaking it all in. They had no clue who pulled the trigger, and Brent, still too busy playing king to realize he'd lit the fuse on his own career. By mid-afternoon, the legal team stopped hiding. A quiet ping hit the compliance group chat. No fanfare, no subject line, just a single message from Kay Marston, Corporate Counsel. Can anyone confirm authorship and ownership of the CAB-REV 3.4_opt cabinet system, currently referenced in internal design files? Please respond directly. Do not speculate. No one responded. Not right away. 15 minutes later, Mallory messaged the same thread. We're pulling old version logs now. Earliest commit is tagged to a local admin account but not linked to current design staff. That was me. They just didn't know it yet. Word spread fast. I walked into the copy room to grab labels and caught the tail end of a heated whisper between two floor leads. I can't even confirm who submitted the original file. They didn't onboard it through product dev, just dropped it into use. Which means it didn't go through legal, no patent protection, no NDA coverage. Nothing. Back on the floor, I kept moving boxes like nothing was happening, but the atmosphere had changed again. This wasn't just quiet. It was stiff, tense. You could feel the pressure in your shoulders just being near the admin wing. Every time someone opened a door, heads turned. Someone said the CTO called an emergency sync with IT and legal. I didn't hear it firsthand, but a guy from data entry told me it got heated. CTO came in hot, he said under his breath. Told the infrastructure team to lock down every external link, even Google Drive. I raised a brow. And they told him it's too late, said it's already gone global. Downstairs, one of the interns pointed out that a Spanish hardware blog had reposted the cabinet build and started translating the docs. France, Brazil, even some builders collective in New Zealand had it live with full credit to unknown original designer. I passed the engineering glass wall again later that afternoon and saw a whiteboard with 5 names circled and crossed out. I recognized them all: senior engineers, data techs, even one manager from my side of the floor. No one had a clean link to the cabinet's origin. My name hadn't made it on the board, yet, but the whispers had started. I caught one in the hallway. Didn't Ryan build the original prototype? Another near the back dock. He's been here long enough to know where everything's buried. Someone even asked Brent during a walkthrough, "Hey, weren't you the one who pushed the deletion?" He brushed it off. "We needed compliance. It was unauthorized. I did what had to be done." He didn't sound as smug as before. Now he sounded careful. I stopped by the break room, checked the bulletin board. Someone had taped a screenshot of the cabinet system on a giant flatbed truck with the caption, "Streamlining this, Brent?" Nobody laughed out loud, but no one took it down either. Before heading out, I checked the audit logs. My ID was listed as the user who removed the files. Brent's directive was attached as the initiating request. The system logged it cleanly. Asset deleted per ops manager instruction. Authorized by R. Thomas, it did exactly what I was told. No more, no less. They could dig as deep as they wanted. There wasn't a single line of evidence that said I broke policy. I sat back down at my bench and stared at the screen. 3 work tickets left in my queue. Minor stuff. Labeling fix, stock count, bin reorder. Nothing worth sticking around for. I clicked through them, logged the updates, attached the timestamps, and submitted them to the archive. No comments, no notes, just clean completion. Then I stood up, grabbed my hoodie, and said, "I'm heading out early." Nobody said anything. A few glanced up. Nobody stopped me. On the way out, I passed Brent in the hallway. He didn't even look at me, just kept walking, phone glued to his ear, forehead tight with panic. I could hear fragments. Audit, ownership question, waiting on counsel, same buzzwords spinning in place. At the front desk, I dropped my security badge onto the counter. Cheryl blinked. "You quitting?" "Just leaving early." She looked at the badge. "You sure?" "Won't be needing this," I said. She didn't ask anything else. The front doors opened with that hollow, electric click. I stepped outside, pulled my hood up, and walked 2 blocks west, toward the diner that hadn't changed in 20 years. Place smelled like burnt toast and cheap coffee, still better than anything that came out of the vending machine back at the warehouse. I slid into a booth by the window, same one I always took when I needed space, ordered a pastrami sandwich and a black coffee. The waitress didn't ask my name, just said, "You look like you've had a day." I didn't answer. Didn't need to. When the plate hit the table, I picked up the sandwich, took a bite, and let the silence settle in. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no message preview, just the notification bubble. I unlocked it. It was from Shelley in admin. We weren't close, but we'd covered shifts together back in the day. She knew things before most people heard the first rumor. The board just called an emergency session. Ops is red in the face. I stared at the screen for a second, then locked the phone and flipped it face down. Outside the window, traffic crawled. Sunlight bounced off a cracked bench across the street. Normal, unbothered. The building I'd just walked out of was probably on fire inside. Metaphorically, maybe not for long, but I didn't need to see it. Didn't care how many panic calls Brent made. He'd written his own script. I just let it run. I took another bite of the sandwich and watched the world keep moving. The boardroom sat 6 floors up behind glass, so thick you couldn't hear a scream from the parking lot. Long table, 12 chairs, 3 screens, leather folders, bottled water, fake calm. They were halfway through an operations report when the double doors flew open. Karen Marston from legal walked in without knocking. 2 others followed, one with a laptop, the other with a manila folder gripped tight. No hellos, no pleasantries, just movement. The CEO didn't even look surprised, just tired. "What now?" Karen set the folder on the table and opened it with a clean flick. "The cabinet system you've been using across 47 franchise hubs was published online as open source, fully licensed, fully public, not stolen, not hacked, given away." The CTO sat forward. "That's not possible." Her assistant turned the laptop around. "It's already indexed in 7 languages. We traced the release to a private server linked to a version control utility installed on internal hardware, triggered by deletion without license renewal." Karen kept going. "Here's the signed licensing agreement. Here's the clause that specifies reversion of ownership. And here," she tapped the folder, "is the deletion log. Timestamped, verified, and executed under Ops Manager authority." Every head turned. Brent, sitting dead center, straightened in his chair. I was acting on compliance orders. The cabinet wasn't authorized storage." Karen didn't blink. "You deleted a licensed system, without checking the terms, without contacting legal, and without understanding what the clause would trigger." The CTO jumped in. "It shouldn't have been licensed in the first place. That's a breakdown in vetting." Karen shut him down cold. "Legal approved the original terms 7 years ago. You didn't bother to reevaluate. That's your failure." Brent's voice tightened. "I thought we owned it." "You didn't," Karen said. "And now? Nobody does. It belongs to the public." Silence dropped like a lead curtain. One of the board members finally spoke. "You gave it away." Flat, quiet, final. A beat passed. Then everything snapped. The investor rep slammed her pen down. "That cabinet system cut our logistics errors in half. Do you know what we've already committed in Q4 projections based on that edge?" Another director pointed at Brent. "Why was this not flagged before deletion? Where was the chain of command?" CTO raised a hand. "This isn't an exec-level issue." "It is now," someone barked. Another voice cut in. "We just lost proprietary control over the one system that made our floor more efficient than Amazon's regional hubs, and it's already been duplicated." A third voice, quieter, older. "This could trigger breach clauses in multiple franchise contracts." Someone else muttered, "Legal exposure's insane." The chaos ramped fast. Voices overlapped. Chairs pushed back. One of the directors stood, unplugged his laptop, and started putting papers into his bag. "Where are you going?" Brent asked. "Far away from this?" the man said without looking up. Across the table, Karen closed the folder and slid it toward the CEO. "You're going to need outside counsel, and probably a crisis PR firm." The CEO didn't answer. He just stared down at the folder like it might catch fire. Ops sat frozen. Brent looked small now, pale, clenching the edge of the table like it might save him. But it wouldn't. The coffee had gone lukewarm, but I didn't mind. I was still in the diner booth, same seat, same view of the street. Cars rolled by like any other Tuesday. People walked their dogs. A city bus hissed at the light. Business as usual. I had my phone out, screen dimmed low, scrolling a woodworking forum I'd been lurking on for years. The thread was already 10 pages deep. Best damn open blueprint of the year. Whoever released this deserves a medal. I just built a test module. Flawless. Photos poured in from across the country. Garages, maker labs, warehouses, even a high school shop class out in Nevada, kids holding up freshly built drawer units like they'd discovered fire. I refreshed again, another dozen replies loaded. One builder wrote, "Used to think I'd never match pro-level inventory builds without shelling out 4 grand. This question mark, game changer." Someone else had adapted the layout to fit solar battery storage. Another guy said he was using the slot matrix for his home brewing setup. I sipped the coffee and smiled, just a little. Then the email came in. Subject line, design proposal opportunity. The sender was a logistics firm I'd never heard of out in Colorado. Straight to the point. "We saw your cabinet system. We're impressed. We'd like to talk. Good salary. Full IP retention. You name the terms." I didn't open it yet. Just let it sit there in my inbox like a quiet win. Outside the window, the sun moved past the rooftop of a nail salon. A delivery truck backed into a lot across the street. Wind stirred leaves off the curb. Peaceful, still. Somewhere across town, behind tinted windows and thick boardroom walls, I knew the suits were still spinning in circles, searching logs, rewriting reports, trying to frame the fire as a systems miscommunication. Didn't matter. They weren't my problem anymore. I took one last sip, pushed the cup aside, and refreshed the forum again.